or the ethanol mandate forever and ever. Amen. But every one of us has seen politicians that tell one group one thing and tell another group another. And we know what happens. They go to Washington and they don't do what they say. And what I told folks there is what you can count on with me. I'm going to tell you the truth, and I'm going to do what I said I would do. And as you'll recall, the room burst into applause, and when I left the stage, got a standing ovation. Which was, and I do think people are so fed up. I mean, everyone we elect, they sound great on the campaign trail, and they don't do it. And I actually think there may be a way for us to use it to our advantage. Say, look, the easy thing to do is come to Iowa and come out for ethanol. That's what politicians do. If you want to know when you can count on someone, and on the flip side, look, there are a lot of other issues like taking on the EPA. Everyone on that debate stage says they'll take on the EPA. You take something like the Waters of the United States regulation. I mean, just incredibly punitive, terrible regulation. Everyone on that stage says they'll take it on. Most of them wouldn't. Because when you do it, you get pounded by the Washington cartel. You get pounded by Democrats, you get pounded by the media, you get pounded by Republicans. And the difference is when I say I'll take it on, I will take it on, we'll get rid of that. And so that's a flip side you can take is look, getting rid of the mandates also means let's get the federal government out of the business of making the lives of farmers and ranchers so much harder. You know, stop with the burdensome regulations, let you farm without Washington making you do it with a 100-pound bag of sand on your back.
How Washington is going to dictate how every farmer operates their farm from year to year. And I think we're just a little ways away from the 1929, 31, 32 control to try and, by restricting what people plant, getting prices up, instead of letting the free market have at it.
I mean, that's, when you have government picking winners and losers, by the way, it also empowers the big boys. I mean, the whole point of it, when Washington's picking, look, if you're a small family farm, my guess is you don't have a lobbyist on your payroll. So there's no one up there fighting for you, but the giant companies, they've got lobbyists. And that's what happens over and over again when Washington picks winners and losers. They favor the people that are there lobbying and coming with a campaign campaign.
And oh, by the way, by virtue of how successful agriculture and manufacturing has been in this country, they're no longer a group that anyone cares about in Washington, really. They give them some lip service.
Well, the small farmers almost non-existent anymore. I mean, it's, you got to do.
That brings up another issue with the fair tax, flat tax. I'm a fair tax supporter, but your father explained to me your stand, which is so reasonable. It's ridiculous.
And let me explain it to folks, because that may be a question that comes up. So I emphatically support the fair tax. I'm an original co-sponsor of the fair tax in the Senate. If I could push a button and magically adopt any tax system, I'd adopt the fair tax. I think the consumption tax is better than a tax on income and production. That being said, I think we've got some considerable distance to get to the fair tax. There's a lot of education that has to happen. That I don't think it's going to be easy, and so I'm campaigning on a simple flat tax because I think we've built a lot more of the foundation. I mean, for decades, people like Steve Forbes and Dick Armey have worked to explain it and build the foundation. Once we adopt a flat tax, then I intend to press to go the next step and go from the flat tax to the fair tax. But I think it's a lot easier to do it in 2 steps than to try to make one giant leap all at once.
And what's my argument is with a friend of mine who's a farmer. What are we going to do about all these deductions that we get now? And that's what she's afraid of. And that's where I don't have the knowledge about what you're saying.
And we have not yet rolled out the precise details on our plan. We are finalizing it now. We're meeting with our economic team. We're running the numbers, and so we're adjusting it. But in the coming weeks or the next couple of months, we will roll out a very specific plan. What I've described so far is that it should be simple enough that every American can fill out their taxes on a postcard. And that when we do that, we should abolish the IRS. And those are the 2 most important pieces. There are a couple of trade-offs in terms of how exactly you structure the numbers, and we're finalizing those right now.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
To education. I have been fighting Common Core now for a
Yes.
couple of years.
Yes.
That is my passion. I am trying to get more of the what we call Common Core warriors around the country to back you.
Yes.
And their question to you is, do you actually have a plan to dismantle the Department of Education? Because they'd like to actually see a plan.
Right. So, if you look at presidential authority and how you implement change, there are basically three avenues. There is direct executive authority, there's foreign policy, and there's legislation. And each of them proceeds at different speeds and in different directions. I've pledged to do a number of things on the first day of office. One of the things that I have pledged to do on the first day I'm sworn in is instruct the Department of Education to end Common Core. As you know, Common Core has been forced on the state using race to the top funds to pressure and bribe states to adopt it. That can be changed by the executive on day one.
Well, the incentives can be changed, but the states can still have Common Core.
The states can still do it, but the federal government
Federal
pressuring the
incentive,
states
right,
to do
right.
it. That can end immediately.
Right.
And
And
if
you
I'm
have the
elected,
authority
it
to
will
do
end
that?
on the first day, and that's something I have repeatedly promised to do on the first day. Now, the second, the broader point. Look, we should abolish the Department of Education. I support it. I'm campaigning on it. That's going to take legislation. That's harder to do because you've got to get it through Congress. You've got to get Republicans and Democrats. So you can't abolish the Department of Education on the first day. And getting that legislation through is going to be difficult. So what I'm certain I can do is end the federal mandates from Washington, and then I intend to fight for legislation to end the Department of Education altogether and to move. I think education decisions should be at the state and local level, close to the parents, close to the people who ought to be the decision makers.
Right.
And the farther they pull it away from the parents, the less involved parents are in the school, and the lower the outcome for the children is.
So what the media tries to say is when you say abolish the Department of Education, they try to say, well, that's because you don't care about education. And my response is that's exactly backwards. It's because education is too important to have it governed by some unelected bureaucrat in Washington. Look, if the Department of Education promulgates some rule, they don't care what any of us think. If the local school board does, you can go see the school board member at the Safeway.
You can vote them out.
You can vote them out, you can chew them out, you can vote them out. Yes. I mean, there is direct and immediate accountability to the parents in a way that coming out of Washington there isn't. And I will point on Common Core, it's one of the issues on which there's pretty sharp differences among the candidates. You've got a majority of the candidates who have previously supported Common Core. Now, several of them suddenly claim to oppose it when they launched their presidential campaign.
Right.
All of a sudden, it's bad. All of a sudden.
Someone fix their mind.
Yeah.
But I do think that's an issue where, from day one, I've been unequivocally opposed to Common Core, and there are not many in the field who can say that.
Right.
And so that's, for folks that are engaged on that issue, that is, I think,
Right, and we're seeing them gravitate towards you as
Yep.
far as a candidate, and so that's been very encouraging.
Can I ask just a quick question about entitlements? My wife and I both work in healthcare, and even though Medicare patients treat